Hello, George King here with the blog Dancing with Delirium. Our last post left my friend Arthena Caston learning that she had early onset Alzheimer's disease. I asked Arthena how she responded to the diagnosis.
You know how you know something, but you don't want to know it? That's what it was, George. I knew it, but I just kept saying and hoping and praying that when he called me in, but when he said, I need to see you come in, I knew. I just knew it. It was just like, I'm only 51. That can't be, because my father was much older, and I kept saying, that can't be right. That can't be right. But it was right. And so I just kind of thought, what am I going to do now? So I continued to work for a couple months. My job was really good. I said, the insurance company kept saying, you can stay with us. You've been with us 16 years. You've always been really good at your job. We're not going to fire you, that type of thing. But emotionally, I was broken. I was broken right then. I mean, I was really broken. And just the thought about it, I'm just like struggling not to even start crying just to think about it. But just, it was at that point I said, I think I worked for maybe a couple more weeks, and then I just called my husband one day and just told him I'm coming home. I'm not going to work anymore, and that's what I did. I just quit abruptly. The good thing was I had been at the company long enough to retire. So they let me retire. You know, my boss talked to me for a long time, and he kept saying, you don't have to leave, take a leave of absence. I was like, no, because I knew I couldn't. I would sit at my desk and just start thinking about it and just start crying. And I was just like, this can't be happening to me. This cannot be happening to me. And the only thing is, the sad part about with the Alzheimer's, the thing is, George, it's just like anything else. When you start thinking about people with Alzheimer's, you think about the end stages. You're not thinking about when it first starts. And so it saddens you right then. Yeah. And that's what it did. It saddened me. And that's what made it so hard. The journey was even harder because I was sad.
Did Arthena remain sad? Stop back again to hear what happened next. Speaking of next, I'm off to the UK, returning in mid-October. I'll be posting from England, Scotland, and Wales, so get ready for a change of scenery. And dance on, my friends! Hi folks, welcome back to Dancing with Delirium, my blog about living with and learning about Alzheimer's disease. Last week we left successful insurance executive Arthena Caston feeling deeply sad about her diagnosis with early onset Alzheimer's disease at age 51. I asked Arthena how she got past that sadness.
What pushed me over was my daughter, my baby daughter, one day said, she was getting ready to leave for the Air Force, and she said to me, she said, Mom, she gave me a rock, and it said, one day at a time. Mama, we can do this. It just says one day at a time. And she handed that to me before she left to go to go to basic training. And I just kind of just had this whole new thought right then. My husband and I went for the professional training that the Alzheimer's Association gives you, and it tells you how you're going to deal with this, what's going to happen. Because my husband had never known anybody besides my father with Alzheimer's. So didn't know what was going to happen, what to expect, anything. And they told him, what was going to be going on, because the doctor had given us a diagnosis, and the diagnosis was, your wife is fine now. You'll start seeing her changing. In 4 to 7 years, she'll probably be an invalid. If not, she's not going to be where she is now. And in 10 years, she'll probably be dead. Well, you know what? The crazy part about that, George, is 3 weeks ago I had my 60th birthday. And I just cried all day. The great part about this was, I'm not an invalid. I can still drive. True, I'm not as sharp as I was before. I very seldom cook because I do forget that the stove is on. I do forget little things, but I'm still alive, and I'm still advocating. And that's what I do best.
I plan to visit Arthena later in the year for an in-depth interview on her experiences living with the disease for nearly 10 years and becoming an advocate for others. I'll also be talking to her husband, Virus, who has supported his wife on this journey, and will add his observations and speak to his role as a care partner. Okay, back to the dance floor. Hello, George King here with the blog Dancing with Delirium, my exploration of the world of dementia from the perspective of a person living with Alzheimer's. Today, we continue our conversations with people living with the disease. Meet another new friend, Jay Reinstein from North Carolina. Jay was working in local government as an assistant city manager when he ran into some difficulties at work.
Well, I started having some, I would say, some processing issues of information. It was a very fast-moving organization, and when you're dealing with your elected officials, there's a lot of expectations. So you got your elected officials, you have your employees, and there was a lot on my plate. And at first, I really thought it was just information overload because, you got to balance a lot of stuff. And I came to find that it was less about that. It was more really about memory. And I was probably experiencing these issues for about 12 months, but I just really attributed it to a lot of stuff on my plate. And then finally, I'll never forget, I was with our communications director, and I was meeting with a group of citizens, and a simple question came up. They asked me the departments in the organization that I supervised, and I remember not being able to remember those departments. And that was sort of the time where, first of all, it was embarrassing, and secondly, I said, this ain't normal. So I went back to my office. I was just really embarrassed and very upset. And that was the first of a number of things that really just sort of hit me. And after going to Duke and then getting a neuropsychological exam, and then going back about 8 or 9 months later, I got a diagnosis after some other scans that I had early onset Alzheimer's disease at 57.
Join us again on the dance floor next week to hear how Jay dealt with the news of his diagnosis. Me? I've got to get back to learning the cha-cha. No, that's the twist, isn't it? Yeah. Oh well, working on it. Hi folks, welcome back. Last week we learned that City Manager Jay Reinstein was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease at age 57. I asked Jay about his response.
I didn't really have a response immediately because while my wife was expecting something like that, I was not. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but that's not what I expected. So it really, it took me a while, several weeks sort of figuring out what this journey was going to look like, and really depressed. And I think my world came to a halt in the sense that what the hell am I going to do as far as how am I going to support my family? What does it really mean? And I think where things started to change is one of the first things my neurologist said to me, he says, you really got to tell your boss. I'm in a role that's a leadership role. I'm reviewing contracts. There's decisions being made, and you gotta, and I was so worried. And I remember I was seeing a therapist at the time because of anxiety, and we were sort of walking through it together. He helped me sort of have that conversation before I had the conversation. And I didn't know what to expect. But the city manager, quite honestly, Doug said to me, he said, listen, we're in it together. You tell me what you need. And that's all I needed to hear, because you hear this horror story, and now I hear it. Then I didn't know anyone with Alzheimer's, no one in my family. And for him to say that, it was like a relief, because then I knew, okay, let's work through this. And it was pretty amazing.
We'll be hearing more from Jay in the near future. But next, I want you to meet a caregiver, more often called a care partner these days. Dan Gawerke's wife Denise was also diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease. Stop by and meet Dan next week to hear more stories from the front lines of dementia.